Yo, good morning. Welcome back. We're here with a tactics talk and a tank review of the new Italian line, the Tier 7 Carro d'Assalto P.88, which means apparently assault car. The assault car. I thought that was pretty funny because doesn't it sort of look like a little Lamborghini or a Ferrari or something? Look at the lines on this bad boy, a little race car. It's a heavy tank. Splits off of the P.43 BIS, and that is the new line that goes up to the Rinoceronte. I am currently on the 8. I just finished up grinding through the Tier 7. What I did is I unlocked all of the modules, so I did not play this stock. You won't get any information about that. I don't do that very much anymore, but I did grind through it. It took me 18 battles. I went ahead and topped it off to 20 battles, so we'll give you my opinion after 20 battles in the Carro d'Assalto P.88. All right, let's start with this. There are already people making all the snap judgments, and I think the general consensus is that it's bad. What that means, fellas, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people and dogs, however you want to look at it, is that it's not overpowered. That, you know, when this community gets a new tank and they start to pan it, it's usually because it's not OP. The general idea is that a tank is only good if it is head and shoulders above everything. I would characterize this tank as competent. For me, average to slightly above average. I think for others it might be average to slightly below average, but it is certainly not terrible. And it's very interesting on this one because this is a tank where the sum of the parts is greater than the separate pieces themselves. You might look at this, and I think a lot of people do, take a look at the stats and go, ooh, ow, ooh. And I did the same thing. The day I streamed this, I got in there, I looked at the stats, I went through it, I did a comparison with the comparison tool, and I went, man, what does this thing have? And after about 20 battles, we're going to tell you what it has, because it's got some things going for it which are pretty interesting that actually make it a decent tank. Now, I'm not going to blow any sunshine up your rear end and tell you that this is a really fantastically great tank. It is, for me, average to slightly above average, and I think surprisingly much better than its legend is going to have. Now, it's got some things kind of working against it right off the bat. It's on the new Italian line. It's a Tier 7, but it didn't get any kind of auto reloader on it. So Wargaming, they like to do these transition tanks, and I mean, I don't know what the point of all that is. I do understand what they say it is, but it never really works out that way. So it's supposed to transition from the medium to the heavy line. And I thought, oh, it's going to be kind of a fast, medium-ish heavy, but it's kind of slow. Or at the very least, it's as fast as any other heavy. It's T29 fast, basically. All right, so it's not really doing any kind of medium things. Now, we'll do an overview, tech tree, considerations, take a look at the 3D model. Actually, we'll just look at the armor because that's not out right now. We'll do a comparison amongst its peers on the tech tree, look at my stats, my setup, and then I've got 3 examples of gameplay for you. I will have down in the description the timing for all those things if you want to go straight to those deals, and then we'll wrap it up at the end. So as far as the overview goes, this thing is another, you know, napkin tank, planned tank. It's an Italian project for a heavy assault tank developed in 1942 during World War II. The work was discontinued at the blueprint stage in favor of more advanced development. So apparently there are some blueprints around of this thing. And that's interesting because the shape is very different, I think, than a lot of tanks. One of the knocks on it is that it's really long. Well, actually, guys, it's not. It's as long. In fact, it may even be slightly shorter than a T29. And it is certainly much squatter. And I look at this tank and I go, how are 4 guys in there? I don't know. They must be all holding hands. They're Italian. Who knows? Kind of hanging out together. It's kind of IS size, actually. The IS is a lot smaller than you might think. It is not really a very big, heavy tank. I mean, you get into things like the King Tiger, it's gigantic. The Black Prince is fairly squat but big. The T29 is huge. You know, even the French tank is pretty big. So this thing is very squat. Now, why does that matter? It matters because it makes it a harder target. All right. The other thing is the front. You know, when you're playing peek-a-boom with a heavy tank, look how big the T29 is, you know, just looking at you there. You got the Tiger, it's a big flat plate going on right here. KB3 is gigantic, lots of things to shoot. You get to the Carro, it's low, it's squat. The front armor is actually pretty darn well angled. And while it's only 100 millimeters, that's pretty good angle. It does have this very very buttery lower plate, which is quite large, but this upper plate is quite bouncy. And the turret's only 100 millimeters, but look how small it is. Plus, a good portion of it is matlet, which is going to have some extra armor right there. And then there's angles on the side. So yes, these flat plates, this little tiny section here and right here, are definitely penetrable, but they're small. And I've found myself multiple times fighting these. That's one of the bummers when a new tank comes out, is you fight a lot of the same tank. Is I would be bouncing off the matlet or the upper plate because I couldn't get the lower plate, so I had to really carefully aim onto these things. All that means is, while it's 100 millimeters, it's difficult to hit the turret. The turret, when you're playing peekaboo, I mean, look at the turret and then look at the Tiger turret. Holy macaroni. All kinds of places to hit this. You get any kind of range on this thing, and it's just real difficult to hit the thing you want to hit. Does that mean when you hit it, you're going to bounce? No, because it's only 100 millimeters. Still, though, you got the extra matlet. And this is one of those examples of just the kind of the way that the game is designed, the game is played and designed, and the way this tank is designed, and the way it fits into the meta of the game. It actually gets a bonus out of that. There's no number for that, right? There's no stat for size or squatness or difficulty of hitting important parts on it. It's just part of the design of the tank, and it is one of the benefits. Does it make it an amazing, great, fantastic, best tank ever? No. But it's just one of the interesting things about this tank that really helps it out. So that was a pretty long overview on that. Let's jump into the tech tree, and we're going to take a quick look. Now, these are 4 crew tanks up to the Rhinoceronte, which makes me want to pull my hair out. But in theory, Crew 2.0 fixes a lot of this stuff. Still, we go to the tech tree. We got the Carro, and it is running a commander gunner driver loader, where the P.43, if you're bringing a crew from there, is a commander gunner driver loader. All right, same crew up through the Progetto 66, and then 3 crew members, unfortunately, on the Rhinoceronte. They drop out the gunner. So you're going to move that crew through. I haven't looked at the radio operator. Please tell me that they did not change the radio operator position, but we'll see here in just a minute. The modules for the Carro de Assault are pretty straightforward. You're going to unlock 1 radio, a engine, and the tracks. You're going to get a mediocre starting gun, and then you're going to go through the turret and get the big 90 millimeter. The 88 has much more DPM. We're going to talk about that in a minute on the comparison. But the pen is so atrocious, I do not recommend playing that any more than you have to. Okay, this thing is not great itself. We'll get into that later on. We look at the stats, but of course it is much better than the 88. Again, I don't recommend getting a little bit extra DPM out of the 88 because the rest of the gun is not great. You really want to go for the 90, then you're on to the Progetto 54. All right, let's take a look really quickly at the armor. I don't have a 3D model, but we come over here for the survivability. It's got 1,250 hit points, 100 millimeters on the hull, 60 on the sides, and then 100 on the turret, which when we get to the comparison, you're going to notice that that's really pretty bad. But again, look at the shape of the turret. Look at how small the squared up spaces are. I mean, if you get an angle here, that's pretty easily penetrable right there, so that's a bit problematic. But straight on, you're really going to have a bit of a hard time getting into a piece of that turret that's actually 100 millimeters, okay, until you start getting side shots and things like that, which is pretty buttery on the side, no worries there. And again, that upper plate is pretty well angled. Now, it's not Russian hover medium angled, but not bad at all right there. Can we just note, it is just not possible that that 90 millimeter fits in that turret. Every time I look at that tiny little bubble turret and that massive gun coming out, I'm like, what? How does that work? Anyway, just chucking that out there for you. Let's look at the comparison. All right, I just wanted to come back real quick to this and make sure we had the radio operator tracked down. The commander is the radio operator in the 7, 8, and 9, as well as the 10. And wouldn't you know it, but they took the loader and they dropped it on top of the commander on the 10. Thanks, Wargaming. That is BS. But anyway, so you train the loader through all these tanks, spending all that time and effort and experience, and then they get rid of that guy and they dump all those important skills on top of your commander, who is already stressed because he's trying to be the radio operator, the commander. Holy cow. Again, I assume Crew 2.0 is going to sort that out, but this is kind of the same thing as the Mana Core situation. It is a screw job to your customers, Wargaming. That is such a bull shiza thing to do. It is. I'm just calling it like it is, man. I cannot stand that. It is atrocious game design. It is nothing but a stab in the kidney of your customers, man. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get happy joy now. All right, cool. Let's take a look at the comparison. I've got the Carro here, and these are all tech tree tanks. Some of the usual suspects, legends like the T-29, the Tiger 1, the IS, the 45 TP, which I quite like, the much maligned Black Prince, and as well as the Tiger P. I think a lot of people are comparing the Carro in badness to the Tiger P. I think that's a bad comparison. I'd much rather play the Carro than the Tiger P than the AMX M445, which I think is another tank that's a lot better than people give it credit for. All right, right off the bat, what people are going to key in on is the two things. The average damage alpha is pretty bad at 240, and the DPM is 1,669, which is the lowest amongst these, to include the M445 and the Tiger P, and those are known for kind of bad DPM. The T-29 is not far off. It's got relatively bad DPM, but it's dropping that 320 hammer, and it's got that great big turret. So right off the bat, you go look at that and go, eh. And I saw the same thing, and I said, yeah, that doesn't look great. And I went, all right, well, maybe it's penetration. Well, it's got decent penetration. The problem with the penetration, though, is when you dab 2 and spend 4,400 silver, you get a whole 18 more penetration, up to a whopping 220. Wow. So that's not great. The aiming time is 2.4. Bad, but not as bad as a lot of them. Not quite as good as, say, a T-29. 2.21 appears to be the best, so it's not that far off. Dispersion is disappointing at 0.4. I did a lot with mine equipment-wise to try to bring that down as much as possible to make the gun a little bit more comfortable. But you would think that with a low alpha, a relatively low DPM, you might get some pen or maybe some DPM or something, but you didn't. And that surprised me. So really lackluster numbers across the board for the gun. All right. However, howsomever, not really as bad, I think, as people are saying, because it's not that far off. Yes, it's at the low end of all of these things. Is it so far low that it's incredible? No, not really. Not when you look at it and go, well, other tanks are dealing with the same thing. The problem with the Carro has is it's got all those kind of low. All right, and that's, you start stacking that up and it looks kind of bad. But hold on, let's move on. Survivability, 1,250 is on the low end of hit points for sure. So it doesn't have any hit points. 100, the armor looks pretty bad. However, the angling is pretty good on the front. So its effective is going to be a bit better than some of these other tanks that also have 100. But it is certainly not on the level of, say, Black Prince at 152 or Tiger P with its 200. Granted, both of those are pretty flat plate. Turret armor, we talked about quite a bit. It's 100. I think that's a little misleading. But if they do get into that flat bit, they're going right through. It's not really going to protect much of anything. Mobility is a little bit disappointing. I figured because this was going to be a transition, it would be quite a quick heavy tank. And when I looked at the rest numbers and I got down here, I said, well, maybe I'm going to find a 45 kilometer or 40 kilometer an hour or something like that kind of tank. And I did not, because it is 35 with a pretty bad backup of 12. Although that does, if you look at that, it's pretty much the same as nearly every one of these heavy tanks. And that's really strange, actually, at this tier. Most everything is almost exactly the same, minus the Black Prince and the Tiger being the two outliers. Traverse speed is okay on the turret. Not bad, usable, but you will have to find yourself shifting your hull a bit to track faster tanks to keep the turret and or to keep the gun on the guy that's trying to circle you. I guess maybe its forte is being sneaky. So it's got, for what it's worth, it's got the best concealment of a heavy tank at tier 7, at least amongst these tech tree examples that I'm showing you right here. You know, what's the difference between 6 and 8? So a few meters, I guess. You know, so in that case where the few meters matter, that's going to help you out. But that's not really a very amazing balancing number right there. And the view range is 350, which is bad, really bad. View range and concealment the height of the vehicle seems to have quite a bit to do with that at a lot of times, especially on concealment. I don't know why this thing's view range is so bad. It's kind of a surprising stat, really. Bottom line, you look at this across the board at all these other numbers, these other tanks, and you go, wow, this thing is atrocious. I guess it wins in gun traverse speed, right? For whatever that's worth. But I think the sum of the parts is actually not bad. All right. Now, why would I say that? Well, its rate of fire is fairly quick. Not as fast as, say, a Tiger 1. But I think its armor holds up a little better than a Tiger 1. So there's a little advantage there. It doesn't fire quite as fast. Obviously, the DPM is kind of bad. But you know what? DPM is not everything in this game. We don't drive up to each other and just start shooting and find out who wins because somebody had higher DPM. That's not how it works. People can go to cover. They can choose their shots. They can trade correctly. All those things. This thing will reload pretty quick and get itself back into the fight faster than most of these others will. Not all of them, but faster than most of them. Yes, it's only dropping 240 average damage, but it's a nice low-slung tank with some pretty decent, actually effective armor. Decent, not amazing. So in the way the game is played, it's actually set up not badly to do so. Little tiny turret can poke over. Usable armor, not amazing, but usable. Decent accuracy on the gun, despite people are going to say, it's a terrible derpy gun. It's no more derpy than a lot of these other ones. So really, in the way the game is played, it actually holds up pretty well. All right. Is it going to drive through everything and dominate? Absolutely not. Is it average or slightly above average, at least for me? Absolutely. So that's basically where we came. And I'll show you some examples of that during gameplay. Let's look at my stats and my setup. All right, I actually did pretty well. I played 18 games. It only took me 18 to get through to the next tank, to the Tier 8, and unlock it. And that's with personal reserves, doubles, missions. There's a lot of stuff going on these days. It's so easy to get through tanks. Whether that's a good or bad thing, we can talk about that at some other time. But it only took me 18. I topped it off to 20 just to give you a nice square number here, round number for how many games I played. 70% win rate. Do I expect this to be a 70% at 100, 200? Absolutely not. I think it's a 55%. To maybe 60, somewhere in there, win rate kind of tank. It was just very comfortable, to be quite honest. I averaged 1,156 experience a battle. This hit rate surprised me a little bit, but I was careful with it. I knew the gun was kind of derpy, so I was going to have to be careful about how I fired, and I ended up with a pretty good hit rate. That's in the ballpark where I want to be. Damage destruction ratio, nice and high, 1.6 and 2.8. There's the armor use. As I always say, get about 0.5 and you've got situationally usable armor. Somewhere around 1.0, you've got good armor. Anything around about 2.25 and less is essentially no armor. You're relying on lucky bounces. So it says proven out, over granted a low sample size of 20 battles to be useful, okay, if not amazing armor right there. And I think that speaks a lot to the turret and the upper plate being pretty darn decent in the way the game is played. All right, I'm not saying 100 is an amazing number. What I'm saying is the way the game is played, it holds up pretty decently and will get you some bounces. We talked about experience. Damage average is 1589. This is right in line with most of my other heavy tanks. Oni is at 14. The IS-2 is at 16. The M445 is at 1400. The 201, which is a premium, is at 1500. My Black Prince is at 12. Pretty bad. We get up to the 2S. We've got a 14. The IS-2, 1600. IS-2M, 1800. That's actually a pretty dang good tank right there. You can see I'm running a 69% at almost 50 battles. The IS, 1400. So really, there is nothing in there in these numbers that are any really different than any of my other Tier 7 heavy tanks. It's right there. Right at basically the average. All these numbers are panning out for what I would expect a Tier 7 heavy in the way I play to handle. It's just the fact, right? We can look at the numbers and go, ooh, it's terrible. We can look at the test server. We can look at all the reviews that have been done on it about how bad this thing is. And the fact is, at least in my hands, and I would assume in your hands, it's going to do about the same as your other Tier 7 heavies do. And what else can we ask for from Wargaming when they send out new content than something that basically performs as it should at tier, right? I guess we can get mad because it's not overpowered and it's not the flavor of the day. I mean, gamers are gamers. Some people, that's what they want. And that's fine. If that's your criteria for having a good tank, is that it's completely overpowered and hurts the game, then fantastic. But I'm not having a bad time in it at all. All right, let's look at my setup. Okay, I'm using vents. I've got a rammer, and I am using the rotation device, improved rotation device. This does not have a vert stab, which is why I'm not using that. I'm still on the fence on whether the improved rotation device or the vert stab, which one I would take at that point. I don't know. Some people have said it has to have optics because its view range is bad. Well, you know what? It's a tier 7 heavy, man, but just sacrifice the view range. Get the gun handling and stuff under control. That's why I have this set up right here. Reload as fast as possible. Do everything I can for the gun handling to fix that kind of issue. And then I'm just going to have to deal with the fact that I don't have great view range. This is not the crew I used. I used this crew right here, which is the Christmas crew, and they were obviously pretty good. So back to what I did to minimize the problem with the gun handling, or not necessarily the problem, but the relatively bad gun handling, make it as good as possible. I had Brothers in Arms. I had all of the firepower things at 100%, smooth ride and snapshot. All right. Like I said, I'm running the rotation device. I've got the vents in the bonus slot because vents always work in the bonus slot. And that gets me down over here on the firepower to a dispersion of 0.39, which is not amazing. All right, but getting there. We can also probably run food if we wanted to, which I did not. Let's see what that does real quick. If we run food, then we've got this thing down to 0.38. And let's say we run some kind of, where's the vent thing? There we go. We'll run the vent thing, and did that help us up? 0.37. All right, so we can get it down to 0.37 if we wanted to. All right, but I did not run food because I get tired of getting lit on fire. So I run the big fire extinguisher. So only 0.39 dispersion, but I'm gonna tell you, it just didn't feel that bad. 2.33 aiming time. Although these numbers would have been better, wouldn't they have? Because I forgot I had the other crew in there. All right, I had the other crew in there, so these would have been much lower than that. Let's see, what did they get this mod one down? 0.35. So yeah, I think I was probably running closer to a 0.35. With the crew and the good skills and the Brother in Arms. All right, forgot about that. So I could look at that. I could go ahead and set that up in the comparison tool right there. So it was definitely better than 0.39. And that was my setup. I had, like I said, large kits and a large fire extinguisher. I did carry 8 APCR. Why? Well, because like I said, it's only 220 pen and it's 202. 202 is nice for a tier 7 as a standard pen, but 220 is pretty atrocious for a tier 7 with its gold pen. I mean, you're not getting much. You're getting a whole 18 more. So I carried 8, and I fired them liberally. All right? It's just one of those things you're going to probably have to do with a lot of, frankly, the tier 7 heavies. A couple of them have pretty good pen, but most of them, when they see 9s, are going to end up dabbing 2 and still struggle a bit. All right, let's look at examples of gameplay. All right, first example, I'm going to show you my first ace. This was in a loss. You can see early on, as with most releases, it's all Carros and P.43 BIS. But this thing can dish out some damage if allowed to do so. So we're going to show you kind of the low silhouette, the low signature size of this thing. Makes it kind of hard for people to hit and to aim in at the places they want to. All right, you know what? The gun does its thing, right? Little RNG, little bounce right there. So the first 2 shots with AP, trying to get rid of the Rudy right here. We'll just shoot in here and miss. Nope, got him. All right, so gun not bad. Like I said, probably around 0.36, 0.35 initially. Unfortunately for me, I kind of come to this sideshow over here. The real fight is down in the southeast. I actually mentioned, this was on stream, I said I need to go down southeast. I'd love to push down there and just brawl with these guys, with all these other Carros. And I said, normally my team won't do that, so I'm not going there. Well, guess what? They did this time. All right, so I eat that shot. Let's see where he got me. Right underneath the mantlet. All right, so that's where he got that shot in there. And again, I'm playing little turret games with this guy. Missed him. And you're going to get that. Fairly derpy gun. You know, not terrible, but fairly derpy. Fight down below goes really poorly on this map. Okay, I take another shot. Actually gets my gun too. So let's see if he actually pens through. Where did he get me? It's hard to tell. Same spot or right into the gun? Sometimes the damage models aren't there and you can't tell. Is that it right there? Nope, that's a light. Yeah, don't know. Maybe straight into the gun? I have no idea. Hard to tell. And he's got me with 2 just regular AP rounds, right? That's the 202 pin. So he's had no real trouble going through me a couple times. So far, the Southeast is doing fine. We're going to hang out here with my Thunderbolt buddy and my P.43S friend. We're not really fighting many of them. We've got a Carro in the back up there. We've got one right in front of us, and the P.43 BIS right in front of us right there. Trying to take a peek, see what's going on. I shoot just to see if I get lit. Unfortunately, that was a APCR shot I did that with. I see this P.43 BIS moving up. Hoping I can maybe get a shot on this guy. I am offering side armor to him here, so a little bit dangerous. All the way back here. I'm thinking maybe he's around this corner. No, that's that 12 km/h backup speed. We'll just zing forward right here and get out of the way. And there he is. Oh, geez. Got a piece of him. Rolled to 260. You know, the 240 is a little bit irritating. I'm going to go ahead and use the turret profile here. Try to not give him any more than I have to. He actually gets a piece of me there with regular AP, so didn't have any trouble pinning me on that one. Let's see where he got me. Looks like, yep, look at that. Right through the lower plate. So despite trying to play turret games, I'm still exposing my hole on that shot. The 240 is a little bit irritating. It's interesting to me that the Tiger 1 has been given to, what is it, 280, but the, let me get track on that one, has been given 280, but the Tiger P still sits at 240, and this is a 90mm gun with 240. It feels like it could be a little bit more. I would really love this tank. If it was doing 280, this would be a really good tank. I mean, if you cranked up that DPM to more like 1800 with a 280 alpha, maybe a little too good, to be quite honest. So we start to lose down there in the Southeast, and I can already tell where this game is going. There's not a lot I'm going to be able to do to bring this one back. I'd really like to get rid of these 2 guys if we could, and it looks like the P.43 sort of understands that. So he's going to come on up here, and we're going to start working on these guys. Thunderbolt starts to move in. We go back to the APCR. I'm trying to get, you see me aiming a little bit right there, trying to get into that more flat plate area and try to avoid the mantlet as much as possible on that guy. Now there's a BIS up top, so now I'm facing 3. Got a Hellcat behind me, and it's really just kind of grim at this point. While this is an ace, it's all done. It's all done at the end in garbage time, right? This is like the basketball game where you get your personal high in points scored, but you're already, 50 points behind, and they've got their second string in, right? So not really that impressive as far as the numbers, but you can kind of see the point of this really was to just show you the ability to kind of use the turret right here and a little bit of movement, right? When you have a relatively, when you have an angled turret and a relatively low armor kind of thing with weird angles like this that is small and hard to hit, it's the movement that sort of keeps you alive on that for the most part, not just the armor, right? You don't want to just sit there, and that's a good idea pretty much all the way around in this game to keep sort of moving and jinking. You have to play that against how much dispersion you're willing to give away, because as you move, depending on the tank and the gun and all that, you'll start to lose, you'll start to have more dispersion. So you got to play all that out when you're playing the game, but it's a pretty good idea to do, especially close in like I was right there. Just trying to keep as much of this, just expose the turret, expose as little of the tank as possible. And that low-lying tank really helps out. There's more terrain you can use when it's a low-lying tank like that. Like a T-29 right here would be much more difficult to hide. Hit that guy again. I think it's pretty much over here. We got 3,137 damage. We get another bounce. So I am sort of just relying on the armor. I got some angle. I got that front plate. Just doing the best I can with this thing. Make a miss right there. Oh, just not quite angled enough. Get into that track down there. He misses. Take a blind shot into the cap. Maybe I can hit one of them. That's pretty much over, but the shout, and we get up to 3,300. The other thing I want to talk about a little bit on this is how fast it fires, right? It's not tiger fast, but you're back in the game real quick with this thing. with the reload on it. And yes, it's only dropping 240, but you're able to get out there and get those shots off. Oh, look at these bounces. Bunch more bounces. I think I get one more bit of damage off this guy. Nope. No damage. Alright, first example. Let's move on. Alright, we'll watch a portion of this battle right here. You can see that we're getting wrapped around on the north side here. We're in really pretty bad position, but these guys are coming around. And what I want to show you here is, again, the turret thing and how fast it fires. This is more like what a medium can do as far as how fast you can be back in the game, getting out there and start harassing people. And this can be really important when you're trying to keep heads down or hit tanks when there's multiple tanks. You got lots of choices for shots. Right there, I just back up. I don't really have to wait very long for the reload, and I'm pretty much right back in it. Quick backup, just dropping 240. Again, the DPM's not amazing. 240's not an amazing alpha, but it's the combo of the whole thing. Just show that little tiny turret around that little piece of rock right there. Hit that guy, come out, and I'm right back in it looking for another shot right there. Guy misses, or maybe that was my friend shooting. I think that might have been the IS shooting. Now we got guys pushing on us right here. This is the tier 8, the auto loading or the auto reloading tier 8 right here. He's coming in, he's taking all kinds of hit. Instead of, I don't want to poke over the edge of that. I'd love to, but I think I'm going to get hit. Look how many guys over there. There's a Basante, a 3002, an EBR. Who knows where the Scorpion and IS are. So now we're just going to start working on this guy. And close in, here we go. Close in, actually the gun is just fine. Got good gun depression. I didn't really mention that, but it is 8%. Looking for the shot I want. There we go. And we're just shoot, shoot, shoot. And the Artie finds me right there. I was mentioning that during stream. I said, as soon as the Artie figures out we're on this little flat spot here, they're going to just absolutely start bombing us here. So we got to tuck up against this wall. So we got 1,222. There goes the EBR. The EBR actually goes off the edge here and gets stuck. Put a shot on him there, and he's going to try to get down into that little V. He disappears for the rest of the game. I guess I don't know if he's all the way down yet. He goes dark, and somehow he maneuvers. He might actually be stuck right now. I don't know how far down he went down the it. Oh, he's moving a little bit. Yeah, I think that's where he probably slipped off the back right there. So we're just going to turtle up from the Artie here real quick. You notice I am firing gold. Like I said, I'm not going to be afraid to fire the APCR in this tank. 220 is not a lot of penetration, even with gold. And really, most of the 7s do this. I want to say the IS-2s, they start at 175, for goodness sake, and go up to 219, I think, with their gold round. So their gold round is not fantastic either. So we're going to hang out here for a bit. We got the 4190. There we go. Now we got guys starting to peek up. See, the aim time's not bad. You know, come around there. The dispersion wasn't terrible. It doesn't look like the dispersion on movement or hull rotation is actually very bad. 2.4 is a fairly long reload time, but it looks like it's definitely usable. A couple medium range shots, fairly easily made right there. Not a lot of target for me to see as far as the amount of the tank that was exposed. And we get both those shots in there, no problem. So it's not a fantastic sniper, but I think it's not anywhere near as bad as a lot of people would have you think. So we're just trying to avoid the artillery right here. We need to clear these guys off the north. When we clear these guys off the north, then we have some freedom of movement. I'd really like to find where this 3002 is and get him dead. Because right now we're stuck on this shelf, and fighting the whole game from the shelf isn't really a fantastic idea. Our Progetto 54, for whatever reason, decides to go up there and get rid of all his hit points, pushing into guys. I'll just hang out here for a bit. Checking 6. 54 is getting beat up. Their Basante has come back around. 3 guys over on the 1-2 line. And the Artie is just working over anybody who dares to show their face. And then this guy YOLOs in. So there's a shot we miss. Go ahead and turtle up here on this rock. Just give him as little amount of tank to shoot as I can. There's one shot. He shoots. I'm right back in it. Harassing fire. There we go. Another thump on him. He takes it from someone else. Quick reload. Look at the IS is waiting for his reload. His takes forever as compared to this thing, and boom. I think I actually hit him, but I don't get the kill, and down he goes. And then the 3002 comes in. Here he is. Thump on him. Reload's coming back to me. Down he goes. Don't have to push out. Now the Tiger P. And of course we got to get off this shelf now. Oh, actually he's down below. Perfect. Alright, that's all I wanted to show you on there. Just a good example, really, of how this tank just plays better than the sum of it, better than the parts. You know what I'm saying? That the sum total of the tank is way better than looking at just the numbers. And I'm gonna get thumped by this guy. That is not always true. You know, a lot of times you look at it and go, the numbers are terrible, or you look at it and go, the numbers are great, and it's true. Now, the 268 version 4 was very clearly overpowered when it got put out, and that was all based on numbers. Nobody had really played it other than test server and things like that. I think I'm going to die actually right here. Yep. And this one, if you just looked at the numbers, looked terrible. Now, I'm not going to out-reload, say, an FV201, though. He reloads very quickly, and he's going to have no problem killing me off right there. All right, 3,163 damage. We got a kill. This ends up being... I think this ends up being a win, to be quite honest. Don't know. The card's coming up. Maybe it's a loss. I think it's a loss. All right, third example coming up. Third example is a bit of a throwaway game. It's just me running around killing everything that I can, top tier, as the only top heavy. But whatever, man. Whatever. You know, this is what we live for. You will notice that I did not show any bottom tier games in 3-tier system today. I think I only saw maybe 2 tier 9 battles. Now that speaks a lot to having a 70% win rate. Somewhat of my skill. While it's not the very tippy-toppy, it's pretty good. And if I'm given, you know, 16, 18 games of not bottom tier, I'm probably going to come out pretty well. I don't think it's going to be a 70% tank. I already said that. So once I start seeing more tier 9s and dealing with 220 pen, although that's what nearly every other tier 7 heavy has, somewhere around there, not great for tier 7, then that win rate will come down. But you kind of live for games like this. Only me and the Panzer 4H over here, and I'm sort of looking at the setup going, okay, other than the Artie, I'm not too displeased with this. I mean, if the other Carro shows up and a couple buddies, I might be in trouble, me and the Panzer 4H, but let's see what happens. Because I'm looking for the other car. I'm like, where is this guy? Well, the P.43 is over there. That's good to know. So that dude's over there. He's worrisome. I don't know where the Carro is, but let's move in. Let's see what happens, man. Just come on in here. We got our big daddy heavy tank, top tier 7. Let's see if we can just start stomping face, and that's where I noticed that the Carro's on the other side. Perfect. This thing has enough mobility to get over there. And I'm very surprised nobody's even peeked. Other than the Cheeto, this means that there's more than likely no one here. I would have taken a hit in the face if any TDs had got into that bush, although there is somebody right there right now. I didn't notice that actually, the M44 right there. I was so busy killing this guy. So we get rid of him. IKV makes a bold move. He wants to come down and start shooting. He actually misses. That was to my advantage. We shoot him. We'll back up. We're just trying to keep him from getting gun on if we can. Now I'm getting shot by this Chinu. Backup's not great. Probably should have aimed for... Oh, I went forward just a little too slow on moving forward. I think I might have been able to sneak by him, but he was able to put the gun on. Just zoom in on this guy and see if we can get a shot on him. Oh, look, you know, when things are working, things are working. That was pure RNG. Pure RNG. Going to look for some cover here because I'm feeling like maybe the artillery is all going to start looking at me. And now we've got guys behind us, and this is a bad situation. This game is sort of getting away from us right now. I'm hoping the Panzer 4H can take out the 12T. I really don't want the 12T behind me. I think if I had to do it again, I would have gone back to the 12T, but it actually ends up working out for me. We're going to move on in here. We got 1,200 damage. We got 2 kills. I'm sort of walking into a buzzsaw of God knows what, how many of these RBFMs and stuff. Their light tanks are all over the map. Really, at this point, they've got to be thinking they had it, except that then their Carro and their P-43 fall, And that really evens things up. So I'm feeling a bit better about this. And the Panzer IV-H is still doing the JOB over there against the 12T. The bummer is the 12T actually gets free. We'll find that out in just a minute. I'm sort of pushing in here, hoping I can catch one or two of the arty out and get rid of them. Coming over here, I don't see anything. And I find the LEF, which is fantastic. He does not really notice me. He's busy shooting people, so I can actually get a shot on him. Going to move over here so he doesn't back up behind the rock. And by the time he notices I'm here and he's being shot, it's pretty much over. He looks at me, we take him down. And now I notice that 4H has died, so I'm going to try to go back and get the 12T, which he probably knows I'm coming this way. I killed the LEFH, and he's going to see me moving if he's paying attention at all. Surprises me, actually, because he gets right by me. I think he's actually right now over there, based on what happens. I come around this way. I don't see him. I'm thinking, man, I do not want to drive all the way back there. He's not still back there. So I was hoping to catch him moving towards me. I didn't catch him out in the open. I spin around this way. And this is what makes me think he there. Yeah, so he was actually up there as he went, and I just have a bummer. Here's where that was a bad shot. I kind of shot behind him. I'm not going to reload fast enough to get the next shot, so I've got to keep on pushing. And there's my buddy, the arty. Takes a piece of me. This guy goes back out into the open. I'm thinking, oh, now I'm going to get the kill on him. This would be fantastic. Oh, now he goes that way. Okay, and there we go. Finally got him. A little bit of the palsy, the old guy hands right there, having a difficult time. But we get rid of the little scout. He shouldn't have gone out in the open. If he'd have just traveled down the backside of this right here, he'd have been fine. And I actually find the artillery. He was up there on the hill, and he's making a runner to the corner. It's going to allow me to put a shot on him right here. This is where the 240 really hurts, because you have zero expectation of one-shotting that arty right there. I mean, really, even with HE, what is the HE at? 320. I mean, he's probably even going to struggle doing any kind of, even with a pen, struggle taking out an arty with the HE on that thing. So we'll move in here. We're going to try to use this rock, be clever. It's 2 to 3. I want to get rid of this arty first. Get rid of this arty first. Because once I start fighting the more mobile little tanks, I don't want to start getting rained on. It'll be over pretty quickly if I do that. Thank goodness he missed me and only stunned me, and I was able to kill him. That's Arthur. Excellent. The M12 is down. We got 5 kills. We're at 2,143 damage. We'll move on in here. I'll speed this thing up. Takes me a while to drive. I'm hoping the RBFM can kill one. I'm thinking, RBFM, please kill one of them, but he does not. I don't know if he took any hit points off of him, but there's one as a 2-shot and there's one as a 1-shot. If they get around me, it'll end pretty quickly. They both fire relatively fast, and if they can pen me, then they're going to have a good time. So come around here. This one makes a big mistake. He's just out in the open. Unknown why he would do that, but I am very appreciative that he did. There's a bounce. He's trying to sneak away. Gets behind something, and just kind of a prayer shot. Yep, let it zoom in a little bit. RNG takes over. Works for me. I don't want to go out into the open and let him just come up and over and either miss him, because if I miss or I don't kill him with his DPM, or at least the speed of his shots, he'll chew through my 400. That's about 4 shots, maybe 3 high rolls to take me out. And those RBFMs really fire fast. He comes up to the top. I don't know why he's up there. Guy didn't play very well. There's a bounce because of the angling, the angle and the angling. And we end up with 7 kills, 2,638 damage, 315 assists. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Well, all right, what's the final verdict of the Carro d'Assalto P.88 Tier 7 Italian heavy tank, the new heavy tank line, average to slightly above average? Some will find it slightly below average, depending on your play style. I quite enjoyed the tank. I thought some of its parts were much greater than the parts themselves. The numbers look mediocre at best, but when you add them together and then you look at the way the tank is designed as far as the way it fits in the game, the low slung size, the little turret, the angled armor, the decently accurate gun for a Tier 7 heavy, let's admit, Tier 7 heavies are not really known, other than a couple of them, for really accurate guns. If it could be improved, it would be a little bit more alpha. I'm sort of surprised they left it at 240. A 250 or 260 with a little bit more DPM would have made this quite competitive as a Tier 7 and one of the better Tier 7s. As it is balanced to slightly above average to me. I enjoyed the tank. So I think if you're looking at this line and you're watching a lot of the reviews that are coming out right now and the chatter on the forum, you're probably going to be shying away from this particular tank. I think that's a mistake. I think it's actually a pretty fun tank. Tier 7 is a pretty fun tier, and you're probably missing out on a good experience in World of Tanks. So that's Guido's opinion on the Carro d'Assalto P.88, the Tier 7 Italian heavy tank. You guys have a good one. Thanks for checking out my review. Let me know down below what you think in the comments. Obviously, I'll always take comments and criticisms of the videos to improve, and we will see ya.